Welcome to the Leading Second podcast, a space to help church leaders thrive in the second chair. The Leading Second podcast releases every Thursday morning, so hit subscribe and share this episode with your team. Let's jump into another episode for all of us who lead from the middle.
Leading Second, welcome back to the Leading Second podcast. My name is Brandon Stewart. We are so excited and honored to have you in this space today. If you lead from the middle in any capacity, Leading Second is for you. So welcome home. And hey, I am joined from the jump today with some of our brilliant coaching team with Leading Second. First of all, we got Dillon Ritchie from Coastlife Church in Venice, Florida. Say what's up to everybody, my friend.
What's going on, everybody? Excited for today.
You're borrowing pastor's podcast equipment today.
I am. So I'm high tech. I'm ready to rock.
The anointing is there. This is going to be good. Okay. Awesome. So glad you're here. We got the infamous Jen Martin from NorthRock Church in San Antonio, Texas. Say what's up to everybody, Jen.
Hey, y'all. So glad to be back.
You're the heavyweight. Like, you're the one we always try to bring onto this podcast anytime we just really need like the truth. We really need wisdom here. So bring it today, my friend.
It's because I'm old.
No, I didn't say that.
You're from God.
But that's what you meant.
Don't put words in my mouth. And also, we are joined today by Dom Gianino from Elevation Church. Say what's up to everybody, my friend.
Hey, everybody. Excited to be on the podcast today.
Hey, yeah. Welcome here to this space. I'm glad you're here. And, you know, I'm just going to introduce you really fast. I think you're a newer podcast voice. We had you do a couple things here with us, but just give us the briefest bio on you, my friend.
Yeah, I've been a part of Elevation Church for 13 years. I get the opportunity to help lead one of our South Carolina campuses, and during COVID got connected to Leading Second, and just really impressed and love what God is doing and privileged to be a part.
And we love you, and we love your voice. In fact, I think you, in our intro here before we pushed record, you made my favorite comment in that you asked if this was editable on the back end, which I'm assuming it means you're going to say some spicy things today, is what I'm hoping. Yeah.
That's your risk bringing me on,
Perfect. Well, I'm so glad you guys are here. And to anyone listening to this space, we pray that this podcast space helps equip you and your team. We have episode guide available for you and your team today. You can head to leadingsecond.com/podcast for that. And hey, take a minute, if you would, and leave us a rating or a comment or share this on social media. This really helps the podcast to move forward. Okay, so today we're going to have an important conversation. We're going to have a conversation we really need to have. One that I think every team is going to deal with at some point. Today, we're going to talk about dealing with division and strife on your team. Probably not the conversation I suppose we want to have, but I'll just open it up. When I say those words, division, strife, to any of our guests, have any of y'all been here? I mean, maybe we can just kind of normalize this for a minute, because I know we all want to have a great team, and we do have great teams. But have you ever been here in the place where it just felt like there was an undercurrent going on in the team?
There's no bad days in ministry, Brandon. So we never have hard times, and we never struggle.
Not at Coastlife.
No, never. No, not anywhere. I mean, this is God's church. So how could we have division and strife anywhere? I mean, we're just dealing with broken people trying to do their best for God. So, you know, it's crazy, the idea to even think that could happen. But the answer is yes. This happens. Not all the time, but it definitely is a part of ministry and church life. So I'm excited for this conversation. I'm excited to learn today as well, because I think it's a necessary conversation.
Yeah, I would say too, not only do we all have it, I think that we need to recognize it when it happens, but we don't need to always view it as the most absolute terrible thing. I mean, we bring people onto our staffs who are flawed and messy and with opinions and ideas and personalities. And, I think we've experienced this, of course, on our team. And then I feel like we kind of swung the pendulum too far and we got into artificial harmony territory, which in my
Mm.
opinion is also terrible. And so I think
Oof.
that both are bad, and you have to find the happy medium with it. So of course we've dealt with it at NorthRock.
Something we say quite a bit, I feel like here and there throughout leading second, is that leading in the middle requires you to lead through the tensions. That you actually don't want an environment totally without tension. Just like if you were to go to the gym and work on gaining strength, you're going to have to put your muscles under tension. Not all tension is bad. Oh, you already just got me with a thought I didn't even have, which is that artificial harmony, that avoidance of tension.
Yeah. So this is, in my opinion, attention to manage, not a problem to solve. Because
Mm,
when you tell your team, "Hey, we don't want any conflict here," it gives the impression that you're not allowed to speak up when you disagree,
wow.
which can be very damaging to an organization. Then you look around and you're just surrounded by a bunch of yes people. Well, nobody wants that. And so I think that church has been so good about teaching honor, but a lot of our team has confused honor with not being able to disagree. Like if I've got to honor this person, so I can't disagree with this person, and I feel like that can be harmful and damaging as well.
Mm,
Yeah, I mean,
that's really
think about the brainstorming sessions you've had. Which ones were the best ones? It was in a room where there was some trust and relationship, but when there was some feedback, right? When there was some conversation about like, hey, I actually don't think that's the best idea. And really what comes out of that conversation is the best idea, but the best idea is not always the first idea. And if we always just agree with the first idea, then we'll never get to the best idea.
right.
And that's just been our experience, is like, as our team has grown in relationship, we're seeing a better product and we're seeing better results, but it's because we're willing to challenge the
Yeah.
normal.
Beautiful.
Very good.
One of the things I like to ask myself often is, when was the last time that my team proved me wrong? Because to your point, you want your team at some level to be pushing on you. How sad would it be if every time that you walk in the room, you're the solution, you're the person that's
Yep.
presenting the idea, and we just go, yep, and we just follow on with you. So there is a level of disagreement or conflict that has to happen to be on a healthy team.
Mm, so good. Well, for the purpose of today's conversation, we're already off to the races. Let's maybe just frame in what we're talking about when we're talking about division or strife. I looked up some words, some phrases, a couple different places for the word strife, getting ready for this conversation. A few phrases I found. Number one was an angry undercurrent. So different than those meetings we're talking about where you can embrace healthy tension. This is an angry undercurrent. So imagine that. Ever had that in ministry? How about the word contention? There's one thing to be frustrated with a team member. There's another thing to develop contempt toward each other. Another phrase I saw, I believe this was in the Webster's 1828 dictionary, was a struggle for victory. In other words, the struggle to try to be right, the struggle to win, which healthy tension is good because we're all attempting to win together. But how about the undercurrent on the team where someone's trying to be right? Someone's trying to come out on top here. Another one was an agitation produced by different qualities. So different qualities are good, but it's the agitation. Isn't this good? Agitation produced by different qualities. And then finally, strife also means to resist someone, to resist another person. And wouldn't you all agree, this is kind of a low boil issue? Division, sometimes it's not the massive thing that we think of, the massive blow up in our mind. Sometimes it's just kind of the low boil.
Yeah, it's like the low boil that turns into the massive thing if you don't
Right.
deal with the low boil. I can think back to a time at NorthRock where we had a low boil and we knew it. We weren't unaware of it, but we thought it would kind of resolve itself. And then it blew up, and it blew up. Like it was huge. And we learned in that, you learn things the hard way. We all do. But what we learned in there was we can't let anything just go. Like the second we see a staff member that
Yeah.
seems to have something with somebody, that's a conversation. Hey, it looks like you're having a bad day here. Let's talk about it. Let's step into the office and talk about that. And we have a phrase that the XP team uses, and sometimes we'll say something and pastor will say, nip it. Don't let that go. I want a conversation today. Don't let that go. And that was born out of something that was a low boil that turned into something that boiled over for us.
Yep.
Yeah. I think that's the tension too of like, I've told myself so many times that it's going to resolve itself. I'm not trying to be extreme here.
That's
Tell me
so
if you guys
true.
disagree, but in my 13 years, I have not once seen it resolve itself. Fair? Everyone's on their head right now.
No, you're absolutely right.
Yes, it just festers.
Everything good is uphill, right?
Because there's someone listening right now who's telling themselves that because they don't want to have the difficult conversation. Or the thing that I've done is I think about all the gaps that would be filled if I have the conversation doesn't go well, or I have to transition the person, but it's not going to fix itself. In fact, in my experience, it's only gotten worse. So maybe this
Absolutely.
is someone who's listening that
Very
do the
good.
hard thing now because it's a snowball effect.
Well, let's talk about that for a minute, Dom. So, I mean, I'll confess part of where this conversation came from in me was, a while back, I had a low boil frustration going on. And I was telling myself, I'm sure it will resolve itself. I'm just going to give it some time. And I think there's a time and a place to give it a little time. I think there's a time and a place. If you have questions, observe, whatever. But the Lord led me to the Sermon on the Mount. I was reading the word one day and I just felt so convicted to go to the Sermon on the Mount, which of course is probably got to be one of the most convicting places in all of Scripture, because Jesus turns the world upside down on us and reframes what the kingdom of heaven looks like. And in Matthew 5, verse 21 to 24, first of all, Jesus teaches, he says, you've heard, you shall not murder. And so he's talking about murder, but then he says in verse 22, but I tell you that anyone who is angry with a brother or sister will be subject to judgment. So first of all, he says, you're thinking about murder, but there's something else in the kingdom that matters greatly. It's not just about taking someone's life. Sometimes you can take their life on the team by way of your motive toward them, in your heart. But then this is the verse that got me. Verse 23, Jesus is teaching and he says, therefore, if you are offering your gift at the altar and there remember that your brother or sister has something against you, leave your gift there in front of the altar. First go and be reconciled to them, then come and offer your gift. And it was so convicting to me because first of all, he says, remember that your brother or sister has something against you. Not maybe something you have against them, but something they have against you. Like that's a really high bar to clear. And I view ministry as our gift at the altar. I don't know if you guys see it this way, but I just view my ministry is my gift, my offering before the Lord, like my way that I'm serving him. And yet Jesus tells us here, lay the gift down, like take a time out and go and be reconciled before you get on your way in bringing your gift. And I will just tell you, it got me to the point where I realized it is my first and foremost job on a team to seek reconciliation, to get past the low boil of strife and frustration. I think one of the challenging things, I'd love you guys talk about this for a minute. Strife and division is just plain discouraging on a team. I don't know what y'all would want to contribute to that, but I feel like it can be a place where you think we had such a good team. How did we get here? How do we arrive here? Have you guys ever been at that place?
Yeah, I mean, if you think about it, it's like trying to move forward when someone's holding you back. And like you're trying to take steps forward, but there's something holding on to you. And it's that unforgiveness, right? It's that offense that you're carrying. And like you can only go so far when you're experiencing that level of resistance. And if you just dealt with the resistance, if you dealt with the conversation, if you dealt with the division, think about how much faster you could go. But I love, by the way, Pastor Brennan, I love that scripture. I think sometimes we need to read the Bible and then listen to it, because unfortunately there have been too many times where ministry leaders have showed up on Sunday or showed up to do ministry and haven't first taken the steps the Bible told them to take, and then wondered why ministry was either unsuccessful or not enjoyable.
Yeah. Why did the Sunday morning feel flat?
Yeah. And it's because the team doesn't like each other right now, and you're showing up on Sunday pretending like everything's okay. Like, maybe we have the conversation. Maybe we deal with the thing first and think about how much more enjoyable Sunday would be if we just had the conversation. But we're afraid of the conversation. We're not willing to have the conversation. What's going to happen if we do have the conversation? Like, all these fears that pop into our head about the conversation. First of all, most of those fears I've never experienced when I've actually had the conversation. Like, those things actually don't happen. More often than not, reconciliation happens. More often than not, progress happens. But it's this fear of what's going to happen if we do that holds us back from the very thing that the Bible is teaching us to do, because there's fruit in taking the steps that God tells us to take. And a lot of times that's what we experience.
Update for you, you can now find this episode of the podcast in video form on Leading Second Plus, alongside the whole library of online courses designed to help church leaders thrive in the second chair. We know there's a tension when you're leading from the middle, and that's why we've created a space for leaders just like you who want to get it right for your pastor and develop skills and wisdom to know that you're winning at your role. So you'll be able to get new content regularly, anytime, anywhere, from world-class leaders that you know and love, and you'll get exclusive second chair leadership development content from our library. So we're happy to offer you a 7-day free trial. If you want to check it out, you can go to leadingsecond.com to take your new step in leadership development.
One of our XPs at NorthRock teaches a class at Leadership Academy, and she taught it to our staff recently on culture of conversation. And in it, she talks through conflict and how to have a conversation when there's conflict. But the very end of it, she talks about the last 10%, how most of the time when we go to have a conversation with someone, we hang on to like the last 10%. We don't say everything, and how important it is that you say the last 10%. Like, you've got to get it all out there. And it has been so interesting because it's kind of become a thing on our team, and they'll come in to have a meeting, and we'll have the meeting. And then before they leave, they'll say, actually, I need to say the last 10%. There's something else.
That is beautiful.
And so it has been a game changer for us. But when you really think about it and you go in to have that conversation with someone, there's a little bit of something that you want to say that you just don't know if you should say or what's going to happen if you say it. And so the last 10% is so important, because if we don't get it out, then we do continue sometimes to carry something against someone, and they think that we've moved on. They don't know that you didn't share the last 10% of whatever you were feeling. So it's been so fun at NorthRock. I mean, I say fun, it's usually a bad conversation I'm part of, but they'll be like, recently we had one and we had the conversation. And then that evening me and another XP got an email, and it said, hey, I would love to meet with y'all again. I have things I want to say. I need to say the last 10%. And so, so we went back in, and it was really beautiful, because her heart was right. It was the right posture, but she was like, hey, I just have some things and I need to get them off my chest. And so it was a great thing.
Yeah. So specifically, we're talking about when two team members might be in conflict. For me as the leader, if I'm being honest, it's hard for me, and I'll put that conversation off because I don't want to have the conversation. When I really dig down, the problem is that I'm seeing myself as having to be the guide to the solution. So I'm the one that's got to get everybody in the room. I'm the one that's got to guide this conversation. And the mindset that's helped me is that I'm not the solution. I'm simply setting the table. We're coming into my office, we're closing the door, and I'm stating what the problem is, and I'm stating where we're wanting to go. And I'm saying we're not leaving this room until we accomplish this. And I just let the conversation happen. What that's done for me is given me a sense of peace that I don't need to do all this work ahead of time, or I don't need to be scared or insecure. I'm just going to create the setting. I'm going to invite the Holy Spirit in, and I'll guide as needed. But you guys have this conflict, and you guys are going to solve it.
Well, I think also too, something I've seen is, executive pastors, campus pastors. I'm just thinking of leaders kind of in that seat. Something I've seen helpful is when leaders can also help with getting past motive and getting to fact. Like, let's talk about this on its merits, on fact. Let's get past emotion. Let's get past feeling here. Because I think sometimes these conversations just feel cloudy. They feel confusing. They feel disorienting. Rick Warren, I believe it was, one time talked about conflict being like a tunnel that you have to go through as a team. That every team is going to go through the tunnel of conflict. Lindsay and I, a few times, have been on vacation up to Summit County in Colorado. You head west out of Denver about an hour and a half, and you're in Summit County. The problem is, to get to Summit County, you have to go essentially through a mountain. So it's one of the longest tunnels, I believe, in the continental US, and it is long. You know how, like, as a kid, you go to like hold your breath in the tunnel. This one's like impossible. You'd die. But I think conflict is like that. We hold our breath and we kind of don't know how to get through it. The incredible thing, though, is when you get through that specific tunnel, when you come out on the other side, it's like a winter wonderland. The snow is falling. It's beautiful. It's paradise. You just had to go through the tunnel first. And I feel like it just feels disorienting to people. And so we hold our breath and we don't enter it.
I think sometimes people come to work at the church and they think it's the church. So, we're all going to sit around and sing Holy Forever half the day, and then we're going to pray the other half of the day, and we're going to go home refreshed and exhilarated. And then they get there and it's a lot of work. And then there's a lot of people with opinions and ideas. And because it's the church, there's this idea that there's not supposed to ever be any conflict. And I think it's probably the opposite of that, because it's the greatest thing. It is the hope of the world. It's the greatest thing that there's ever been, that, is going to save the world. And so the stakes are much higher. So we are more passionate than most about what we're doing. There are people who go to work every day who don't care what their coworker thinks of them or thinks of their idea. But in our case, it's different. Like this is eternity. So the stakes are higher. So our passion can come through. And one of the things that we do in Leading Second coaching, I think it's year one. But some of the homework is you're supposed to ask your leader how they perceive you in a meeting, or something along those lines. And I think that sometimes we don't understand how we look or how we're coming across. This just happened with a couple of team members on our team, and they did not know how they were perceived by the others. And it turns out there was some tension there. They had to work some things out because, they felt like one was defensive, one was, a little bit negative, and neither one of them knew that they were perceived that way. And I think that the healthy part of this is when you can go in and have that conversation. And like Dom said, kind of remove yourself from it and say, hey, you two get in the room, work it out, figure it out. And I'm just here to mediate if necessary. The beautiful thing is that eventually, if this becomes your culture, they will do it without you.
Yeah.
They don't even need you in the room. They will figure out, they will know. One of our staff members said to me recently, she said, I had this conversation and you were in the back of my head going, finish the conversation. And she said, I just had to follow it through, and it was very uncomfortable.
And I think back to Dom's point really fast. I think that as leaders, leading in executive roles, for anyone that's listening that's in that capacity, you can help make what feels confusing and what feels disorienting, you can make it feel clear for people. You can help, you can be the guide. Everyone wants to get to the team that's free of conflict. So you can be the guide that helps get there.
Yeah. And those conversations that we're talking about, they start to go sideways when it turns into an idea competition. And you as the leader are put in the place of like, hey, whose idea is better? The better way I like to have that conversation is like, what's the leading value or cultural component? And how do we let that be the foundation of this conversation? And then let's solve it from there. Because sometimes it's two great ideas. And like you guys were saying a second ago, we all care about building the kingdom so much that we're passionate about ideas, but we subject ourselves or we submit to the greater vision and the culture and the values of our house.
Yeah. So division and strife are discouraging. I would also say that division and strife are momentum killers. And I'd love to hear you all talk about this for a minute. I feel like on a team, you are either working externally focused or internally focused. There's a time and a place for both. I think my point here is that moments spent having to keep coming back to this place are moments where we're not focused on our mission, where we're not. Every team does need to go into the locker room. So every team does need some time off the field. Focusing internally for moments is good. Every good team's going to have to do that. I'm referring more to the team that's chronically there. It can be a real momentum killer because you're waking up in the morning thinking about internal issues rather than external mission. And to me, that is one contributing factor to why teams just treadmill and stall out, is that they just get so focused on themselves. Have you all seen that at all? Just a chronic focus internally that really takes us off of our mission. That takes us externally focused.
I've told this story recently. So I've heard it said that division is just having more than one vision. And more often than not, where you see division is when there's misalignment around the vision. And we had experienced this one time on our team, and there was just tension. Every time we'd get into a room, every time we'd get into a meeting, there was just this weird tension dynamic of like, there's something going on, but nobody wants to point it out. And really, when it all kind of came out in the wash, what ended up happening was there were certain team members on the team that weren't in alignment with the vision. So every time we would get in a room to talk about progress, growth, development, they weren't on board with the vision, which means every idea, every attitude, and every time they'd walk into the room, they were immediately in disagreement. So how do you have a productive conversation in a room where half the people or a percentage of the people aren't even in agreement in the direction that we're going? So we came to a place, and unfortunately, this did not end with reconciliation. Unfortunately, those team members have moved on and are no longer on our team. But when it all came down to it, what ended up happening is that we have a vision at our church that we're going to plant locations, and we're going to plant life-giving, life-changing locations. We're going to be multi-site. They did not agree with multi-site church, which means every time that we got into the room and we were talking about the future, they weren't in alignment with the future that we had in our vision and in our dreams. So every time they were in the room, they were either sabotaging the vision or their heart just wasn't in the conversation. And it always created this weird dynamic in meetings. And it's incredible because unfortunately, they're no longer in the room, but neither is the tension and the strife around our vision.
What I'm getting from what you're saying there is that strife and division can come when people prioritize their own ideas rather than seeking what's best for the house. I think we've all had that happen where people kind of bring themselves to work, what they think is best. Don't you all agree? I mean, the most productive teams out there are the ones that seek what's best for the house and what's best for the team moving forward rather than maybe a loyalty to their own ideas.
Yeah, and sometimes there's loyalty, but it's loyalty to the wrong team. It's loyalty to the people in the church that agree with their side of the story. So they're in alignment. They're just not in alignment with us. But the problem is that they're on our team. So unfortunately, there are times and there are moments where you really have to have the conversation with an individual and be like, hey, are you with us? Because at the end of the day, if you're just simply not with us and you're not willing to go on the journey or to get there, I mean, what are we doing, man? Like it's a non-starter.
I've had a really big conviction on this lately because I've been coaching and working with several churches that are going through major growth spurts. And at the end of a growth spurt, or, you know, your church really moving forward in some capacity, things can look very different at the end of that process than when you began. And I'm reminded of what Sam Chan talks about in Leadership Pain, that all progress brings change, all change brings loss, and all loss brings pain. So progress brings pain, change brings pain for people. And, you know, Dillon, to your point, people that come into the church when it's single site can get really loyal to that season. And when you then, not that you change, like the vision is different, but maybe it's the first time they've heard about it, or maybe they didn't completely understand that when they joined the church. And now you're talking multi-site, all change brings loss. There's going to be a loss of proximity to the pastor. There's going to be a loss, maybe, and a team member that was at their location is going to be in another location, or, you know, whatever. And I think people struggle with loss in church and they don't have that language. So they get backwards, they get funky, and they just don't know why. They don't realize they're actually grieving. They're grieving what they thought was going to be. That's normal. That's human. That's normal. But I think it's what we do in that, to your point. It's what we do. We can actually create division by not growing with the organization as it grows. I've got another thought for y'all. Strife and division, I'd love to hear what you have to say about this. Strife and division are not always a team culture. How many times do we say our team is just not on the same page, when really it's like one person that's not on the same, you know, we say these like, our team doesn't get it, or, you know, our team is frustrated. Don't you think we're guilty sometimes of chemo, you know, nuking the body when we're really a scalpel could have got the issue out? Sometimes we don't just confront the one thing, or the one person, and we try to treat the whole the whole body.
We went through a season like that, and there's kind of a set of questions I asked myself, and maybe this will be helpful. But in the times where something felt off on our team, I would wake up in the morning, I'd ask myself, am I looking forward to coming to work today? And I would find a little bit of a hesitation. And I would ask myself why, you know, and then I would typically boil it down to one or two people or one or two topics. And I ask myself this question: if someone more qualified took my job today, what would they address? So I remove myself from the situation and I try to think through it of a lens of like, almost like a consultant coming into my role. And then with that conclusion, when I remove myself, when I remove my emotions, when I remove my attachment, with that conclusion, how does that inform my day today? Because you're left with like, oh, I got to do something with this.
I think we probably don't look at that space often enough. I think we probably get on autopilot too often. And I think that's a great question. To me, that's what I get out of the Beatitudes, Dom, is I get the introspection of rather than just power through and plow through, could you be more aware of your motives? Because the Beatitudes, the Sermon on the Mount, is just a massive heart check. It is a massive heart check on why do you do what you do? From what perspective are you doing what you're doing? Okay, so we've been talking about a lot of things of what division and strife is or isn't. Maybe we could just tee up something helpful. What in the world do we do? I think is one question I have for you all today. The other question I have is, how do we actually lead in a way to maybe stay free of this? Yeah, we won't always stay free of it. We kind of made that point today, but we also don't want to have that chronic low boil. So what could a leader do if they find themselves in this team culture today? And what are some things we could do to lead beyond it and stay free of it as a team? Do you guys have any thoughts?
Yeah, Brandon, I want to address your first question. What do we do about it? And I think sometimes here's the difference is division and strife. Once it gets in your culture, it's more of a poison than a weed. You can't pluck it and move on. It is something that has to go through a process of removal. But the best day to start is today. Resetting a culture around having healthy confrontation will change the dynamic of your team. But it starts with a conversation, and it starts with a change in attitude and a change in perspective. Like someone has to come to the table today and say, there is way too much toxicity on this team. We need to be able to have healthy confrontation, and I'm going to be the one to own this space today. And I'm going to set an example of what it means to disagree with honor. And from there, you're going to have to go on a journey of consistently changing and molding your culture to having healthy confrontation, but never getting to a place of division. But it will not happen in a moment. It is not a weed. It's always a poison. You're going to have to suck it out. And unfortunately, that takes time.
Yeah, to Dylan's point, it didn't happen overnight, so it's not going to go away overnight. It's been building, it's been festering, and if it's to the point to where I love Dom's question of, am I excited about going to work today? And what I've discovered is, as the leader, if you're listening to this and you are the leader, or you're an executive, or you're the campus pastor, a lot of the members of the team know there's toxicity. Maybe they're a part of it, maybe they're not, and they're waiting on you to do something about it. And you are going to lose good members of the team if you don't address it. So if you know you have some toxic trait staff members, you're going to have to address it. And I love what Dillon said about addressing it in the meeting and saying, starting today, this ends. But if you know that there's a particular person that's just kind of the pot stirrer, you pull them in and you say, look, we love having you on this team, unless you don't. But if you do love having them on the team, you can say that. Sometimes as leaders, we're loyal to a person just because they were loyal to us in a season. And we will know that they should not be doing what they're doing, but we've allowed it because we keep thinking back to when they were there for us back when. But sometimes you just have to go in and deal with that person, and their season could be over. Now, I'm not saying go in and fire everybody, but somebody's season, it may be over. It's like, Dillon, when you were talking about the alignment issue earlier, if someone's values are not in alignment with the church or the vision, they're not in alignment with the vision, then they cannot stay on the team. Like, they just can't. It doesn't make them a bad person. They are not a bad person, but they can't be part of us. They can't be part of this, because we are moving forward and we need everybody to move forward with us. And so sometimes people are just with you for a season. And if you've got somebody that is just not willing to stop stirring the pot, then it may be time to let them go. And if not, you might can turn the tide there and keep them a part of it, but let them know, hey, this stops now, this stops here.
Perfect. And with clarity too, right? That's what I've observed you guys talk about so many times before in different seasons, is having clarity when you have those conversations. Too many times I've tried to manage the emotions of let's just call them like a pot stirrer, and I've lacked clarity. But what I've learned over time is I've had to become more concerned with the response of the person rather than their reaction. Right? As a pastor, when someone has a negative reaction, they're crying, it didn't go the way that you thought, you so badly want to empathize with them. But the power of perseverance is letting them work through it and not cutting that short and jumping in. And I become more and more obsessed with their reaction. How do they come back? What is it like a week from now? And see how God works that out in them. Of course, I'm not talking about ever being mean to somebody. There's no excuse for anything like that. But sometimes you need to say the hard truth and let God work that out in them.
I am so glad you said that. It is not our job to manage their emotions. I think our job is what I've been saying to myself anyways recently, is our job is to have clean hands and a pure heart. that I did the right things and I did them from the right motive. But at the end of the day, you cannot manage their emotions. Quite frankly, I think one of the biggest prices that we pay in leadership, something we will never be able to quantify, but I think it should absolutely bother us and compel us to action, is when you're not dealing with something on a team. First of all, you're fooling no one. Everyone can see it. Everyone is aware. And you're going to lose someone. You're either going to lose the pot stirrer or the one that's causing the low boil issue, or you're going to lose good people. You're going to lose one or the other, and you're going to lose the good people because you don't deal with the pot stirrer, the one that's creating the issue. So unfortunately, unless all parties come to the table and can seek reconciliation, which would be the goal, you're going to lose somebody. You just have to choose who you're going to lose. And I think leaders out there sometimes lose so much credibility with the people that follow them because everyone can see that so-and-so needs to be dealt with. Everyone can see that the pot is being stirred continually, but no one's addressing it. I just think it's heartbreaking. I think it's heartbreaking, the price that we pay. And we sometimes, Dom, to your point, just get really scared of the emotions of that person. And we cannot take that kind of responsibility.
Yeah. We hear this statement a lot in Christianity: tell the truth in love. But what if telling the truth is love? What if the greatest way you can love that person is just to tell them the truth? Hey, so you're unhealthy, you're toxic, you're damaging the team. What if they didn't know? What if they don't have what if they lack self-awareness? And the greatest thing that you could have done was just tell them the truth. I can't tell you how many times I've had a conversation with someone and just made them aware of how they're perceived. And they're like, oh my goodness, tell me how to change. Like, tell me how to fix. And then they go on this journey and they're incredible team members today. But if I never just told them, hey, so by the way you treat people, not acceptable, and like didn't have the conversation, they would have never changed the way they treat people. And people are getting better today because leaders are willing to have the honest conversation, because telling the truth is love. We don't just need to tell the truth in love. Telling the truth is love.
You know, Dillon, one time, this is years and years and years ago now, but I was at a church doing a weekend of coaching, and I had to say some bold things to the pastor. I said them right. I said them how I believed would honor God, honor them. And then I left and I never got invited back. And the people pleaser, or at least the recovering people pleaser in me, was like, I sucked. That was a bad weekend. I offended him. I don't know what I thought. I just thought, man, I was disappointed because I love doing ongoing work and the door just wasn't open. And recently, this had to be like 6-7 years later, I just recently caught up with a member of that team, and we were talking, and this team member said to me, they said, you do realize your visit was monumental. It was consequential for the church. Like, the church turned a totally different direction after that weekend. And what was so amazing was, first of all, I had to realize when you're coaching, sometimes you don't get to hang around to see the fruit of the conversation. But, if we're living for people's approval and this stuff, and we're living for any other motive than just honoring God and honoring them, we're going to get ourselves in big trouble. And I guess it showed me God can do something really great when truth is presented in love. And truth is love. Your point is well taken. And God can grow a harvest of righteousness in someone's life. He can grow it in a team, even beyond your presence there. And it just really convicted me. We've got to stay on this stuff. We've got to lead with integrity, with clean hands, pure heart, and trust God for the outcome. And I love it because I wasn't around to manipulate the outcome or create the outcome. God did that. And in my heart, it was like God got the credit for truth shared in love in that day. And he did a great work in a team.
Yeah, I think we do a really good job of focusing on saving souls. But sometimes we could do a better job of addressing sin. Because what if sin is the very thing that leads that person back into destruction? Right? How many times does Paul talk about in the Bible? I left them to their sin, or so-and-so did harm to me. Like that came out of offense. That came out of unforgiveness. That came out of an unhealthy individual. And it was really because what ends up happening is we focus so much on saving the soul that we never take the time to address the sin. So, hey, as long as you're here and as long as you're with us, it's great. But we're not going to take the time to like talk to you about your unhealthy attitude or your unhealthy behavior because we're afraid you're going to leave. When really, it's probably the sin that's going to lead them out the door anyways.
I agree. And I think that maybe I'll land it with this. One of the things that I got really convicted of in 2020, we had a lot of people leave our church in 2020. A lot of hard issues popped up. I mean, I think this is going to keep happening in our very divided nation, in our culture right now. And I remember the analogy came to me. Someone shared with me, if someone is headed for a crash, if someone is headed, they're in a car and they're about ready to cross a train track and a train is coming, what is the act of love? Is the act of love just, I'll just pray for them? Is the act of love, God, help them? Or is the act of love to get out in front of the car and wave your hands and go, don't go this way because you're headed for disaster? Which one is more loving? And I think again, my recovering people pleaser side had to remember that is love. And they may still crash, it may happen. But I can stand before God and know that I acted in a way that would honor him and honor them. And I think that maybe that's my prayer I'd leave with every leader today, is that division and strife, it's going to be a myriad of issues why you might be facing this on your team, and we couldn't address them all today. And the solutions might be complex and they might take some time. Like Jen said earlier, you didn't get her overnight and you're not going to probably cure this thing overnight. But my prayer is that you would lead in such a way that you could stand before God and say, I did my part. I did my part to honor your church. I did my part to honor you, to honor my team. Clean hands, pure heart. I truly believe that is the space that God can work. And it doesn't always need to be this way. It won't always be this way on your team. Thank you, friends, today for a fun conversation. I don't know. I just felt like I wanted to sit down, have coffee, try to solve all the problems of the world with you guys. Maybe we did a little bit of that today. Love y'all. Thanks for your wisdom today.
It is our honor to serve churches and leaders across the globe. We equip ministry leaders with the coaching, events, and resources needed to embrace their calling, get it right with their pastor, and lead in an uncommon way. Visit our website, leadingsecond.com, to learn how we can come alongside you as you lead from the middle. From the second chair, for the second chair.